Thank you for becoming a resume and cover letter volunteer. We're very excited to have you sign up. The following presentation is an orientation on how ASAP creates, edits, and customizes client resumes and cover letters. It is by no means an exhaustive presentation, nor should it be considered written in stone. The goal is to provide a basic foundation and leave space for you and the client to create a resume that fits their needs, interests, and personality. Let's do it. Here's what we'll be covering in the presentation. A detailed PDF is also attached to the email you received and includes more examples and can be used as a reference as you work. Let's get started. Some things to keep in mind as you get started. Many clients will already have a CV or resume prepared. Some will look great and only require grammatical editing, wordsmithing, or customization based on the job description they're bringing with them and the job they're interested in applying to that day. That's awesome. Most, however, will require more editing. There'll be lengthier international CVs or maybe simply half-page bare-bones American resumes that will require more work. While you should definitely read these materials, it's important to ask the client to discuss their professional background and current career goals. Oftentimes, this will jog the client's memory about a particular accomplishment, reveal a worthy volunteer experience, or simply highlight an important part of a job that was not initially included. It is also a great way for you to include the client in the work and ensure that you're not working simply for the client, but with the client. While you might not consider yourself a resume expert, you do have more experience creating American resume than the client. That does make you the expert. And for some clients, it's culturally appropriate and even expected that you, as that expert and as that authority, should complete the resume without input from them. Please, please, please push back against this. This is their job search, not yours. And clients need to take ownership of their search. It increases the level of accountability and responsibility the client has, and it leads to better job outcomes. Lastly, resume writing is as much art as it is science. We have our foundations here that we're about to go through, but be willing to be creative. Be willing to discuss with the client and come up with your own solutions and your own ideas to create a resume that most accurately fits the client and their interests. Do's and don'ts of resume writing. A few rules to follow. Resume length. Resumes should be one full page, or if the client has tremendous amount of experience, 2 full pages. Resumes rarely can be 1.5 page if each job description and bit of experience is relevant and important to the job being applied to. Master resumes can be any length because customization and the opportunity to get it to 1 full page will happen later. Font and formatting. Font should be between sizes 10 and 12 and not Times New Roman. It just needs to be a clear, legible, clean font. Calibri, Arial, Cambria, and Garamond are my favorites. Dates should be flush to the right side of the page across from the corresponding position title. Language. Resumes should not have I, we, or any first, third, or even second person references. Job description bullets should always start with action verbs. As much as possible, you should avoid generic, nondescript words. You want to focus on highlighting the accomplishments, outcomes, and results of the client's work. That means you're staying away from something generic like monitored and evaluated grants, wrote annual reports, presented findings. You want to provide context to what that work was. monitored and evaluated 3 public health grants across 6 states, and presented findings to international headquarters that led to change in project implementation and increase in target populations served. This says so much more and is a much better bullet point. As much as possible, you want to include numbers, budget size, employees supervised, number of offices, monthly, weekly. The more context you can provide, the better. And a simple way to do that is to make sure you're including numbers in your bullet points. Frequently asked questions. When and why do we include work authorized, no sponsorship required on the resume? When I speak with HR and recruiters, they often ask the work authorization status of our clients. That's because sponsoring someone for a work visa is a time-consuming and expensive proposition for employers. Our clients, however, have work authorization and do not require sponsorship. Making sure employers understand that and know that difference removes a large barrier to employment for our clients. For clients who have U.S. work experience, it may not be necessary to include work authorized, no sponsorship required, because with the American work experience, it's clear to the employer that they are working and have work authorization. If the client does not have U.S. work experience, this is a phrase that probably should be included in the header underneath the name, address, email address, and phone number of the client. We put work authorized, no sponsorship required. How to list survival jobs. There are sort of 3 possible ways to list a survival job on a client's resume. First of all, you can list it first if it's the most recent position, and if the survival job has relevance to the job they're applying for, or when the goal is simply to show off that there has been previous U.S. work experience. You can also list it at the bottom of a resume after relevant work experience that includes all of the client's international relevant work experience to the job they're applying for, and add it under a separate heading like additional work experience or American work experience, just to show that they are busy. This is often done when there would otherwise be a longer employment gap on the resume. If that's the case, you can add it in on the bottom to say, no, look, I've been doing something. It's just not necessarily in line and relevant to the position I'm currently applying for. Lastly, you can not list it at all. If it's irrelevant, if it prevents the resume from being one page, if it doesn't really cover an employment gap, or there's not really an employment gap that needs covering, then you don't have to list it. The best thing to do is to talk to the client and figure out what approach fits their interest and their objective best. Many clients lean towards not wanting to include it, but I do think there are real benefits to including it, and it's important to share those benefits with the client, and then a decision can be made. Which is better, a professional summary or objective statement? First of all, what's the difference? A professional summary does not include a seeking an opportunity in sentence like an objective statement does. Professional summaries are, well, what it says, a brief summary of your most important professional experience and skills that you want to highlight. My general recommendation is to include a professional summary instead of an objective statement, and this gives the opportunity to include an optional key skills section. We'll talk more about what that looks like when we look at some sample resumes. What is a master resume? It's a resume that includes everything the person has done: professional, volunteer, education, skills, certifications, etc. It can be of any length, because it's never sent to an employer. It is the base from which all customized resumes begin. Later, we'll look at how you can take a master resume and shrink and customize it to fit the job description. For now, a master resume is simply the complete, full resume. Once a resume is completed, where should it be sent? All completed resumes and cover letters should be sent to the employment program manager, as well as the client, and the client is expected to label all resumes and cover letters appropriately before then submitting the application. The following is a list of words to include and words to avoid when creating a resume. This list is from careerbuilder.com that asked HR managers and recruiters what are words they do not want to see on resumes. These are all words that are buzzy catchphrase words with little concrete meaning. They're unnecessary adjectives or expressions that don't immediately conjure an image. What does dynamic in the workplace actually look like? What is value add without actually saying what the value you are adding is? Skip these words. You need to be more detailed, specific, and provide real context. This is from the same questionnaire put out by CareerBuilder and is words that HR managers and recruiters do want to see on resumes. A lot of them are action verbs: achieved, improved, trained, managed. They are immediately identifiable by, okay, I know what that looks like in the office. It's something we need from this person. These are the words we want to use: active, definable, action verbs. Here's our first sample resume. This is an outline taken actually from Upwardly Global that I've updated and made some changes to. Overall, this resume is relatively easy to read. It's got a fair amount of white space. Could actually maybe do with a little bit more. There could be some spaces added before key skills or near the additional works experience / volunteer experience. But one of the great things about this resume is the order it follows. Professional summary, key skills, relevant professional experience, additional work experience or volunteer experience, education, professional development, and affiliations. This is a really good basic structure to follow. This is an IT client's resume from ASAP, and I really like how he structured this resume by having that sidebar. It gives him a lot of opportunity to decide what he wants to pull out and put into that sidebar, and it gives him a lot more space to work with. You can fit a lot of words into this type of resume and still have a fair amount of white space. And it seems to me to be pretty easy and simple to read. He puts technical skills instead of key skills because he's going to list the specific web development skills that he has. And then down at the bottom left on the sidebar, he includes honors and awards. He doesn't put them into the professional experience or scatter them around. It's, hello, I have got these honors and awards. I've won these things. I'm clearly skilled and talented at my job. Something else to notice is in that second professional experience, he was promoted from website maintenance officer to senior web developer. Something he could have done better is actually specified that and made that even clearer than simply just listing it like that. Anytime you're promoted, say it. You want people to see it and notice it. This is the resume of a client searching for a banking position. And right away you can see on the professional summary, she says it: banking professional with experience coaching employees in a customer service environment. Exactly what a branch bank would be looking for in their next teller. We've decided to put the education above professional experience, in this case because the education is a bit more recent and the client felt that her internships and work experience weren't as important as her education. I don't know if I necessarily agreed, but we went with what she wanted because it was her resume. I also wasn't so sure about the colored lines, but again, she was passionate about it, and they're fine. It worked out okay. Um, as a bank teller, we wanted to make it clear that FOMEC was a microcredit organization for small businesses. It was a bank. And as a commercial representative, she functioned as a teller. She's applying to bank teller positions. She's already done the job for over a year. She needs to show that. We did similar things to the marketing and intern positions, saying, okay, this is what this company does. Certainly for international companies or foreign companies. I mean, I don't know what Yumi is, but now I do. It's a nationwide Wi-Fi provider and IT consulting company that shows some significance, depth, creates more knowledge and context for what exactly she did at that company. And any chance we got, we added numbers. 35,000 USD, 10% of weekly sales, more context, more opportunity to show her scale and ability. Here is a 2-page resume of a client interested in more of a mid-level nonprofit job. I really like the spacing, structure, and organization of this resume. And I also appreciate that every single job and job description here has value. There were certain times for certain applications where it was very easy to customize, to say, oh, we're not going to include this job description from World Vision International, and to do so pretty easily. But he has 2 almost full pages, definitely more than 1.5, and it was not really possible if he wanted to include everything and show all his ability to get this down to 1 page. There were certain changes we did make depending on the job. For example, the place resort, human resources administrative assistant, that's not as applicable, and maybe that could be removed. But for the most part, this resume is a great example of what somebody with more experience does and how they get to 2 pages. Customizing a master resume. We've talked a lot about customizing resumes. So what does it mean to actually customize? It means that you are crafting a resume specifically for a job description you have in mind. That means the client should read carefully, review the company's website, read the mission statement, pick out keywords from the job description, and include them in their resume and the cover letter. A customized resume should be new for each job. If you're working with a client on a customized resume as opposed to a master resume, it is not your job as the volunteer to do all of the customizing. It is the responsibility of the client to send you a resume that they've already worked on, that they've already considered, which means they're sending you something they've already customized, both resume and cover letter, with a job description, and in the email, a few sentences explaining what keywords they picked out, what job responsibilities they highlighted, and how they fit them into their resume and cover letter. You're editing their work. You're not doing their work for them. When editing a client's cover letter or resume, read the job description, read the client's email explaining the keywords and what they wanted to highlight, and then go through the resume to find out, are those keywords really used? Does the professional summary include skills or experience that directly match the job? Do the bullets show off accomplishments that fit the job description? And are there any keywords or skills that are missing? Send an email back to the client. Hey, I noticed in the job description it says they're looking for someone who's done this. I don't see that in the resume. Have you done it? If so, we should add it. For the cover letter, your focus should be on grammar and phrasing. Clients can often say, speak, share their experience, why they want the job, but occasionally have a harder time putting it to print. So your job is to help with that phrasing, with that grammar. Always think STARS: situation, task, action, result, and strengths. This is how you can structure stories, right? Because you don't want the resume and cover letter to repeat themselves. The cover letter should not include the exact same job descriptions as the resume. You want to expand, share more, give more context, give explanation, and you can do that by following that STARS pattern. The last part is how you save. Resumes and cover letters should be saved as separate PDFs, unless otherwise specified in the job description, which does happen, so people should read. Name_resume, name_cover letter. Here is a sample of a master resume from a client interested in a nonprofit position that was probably a little bit below what they had done previously. And we really wanted to make a conscious effort to get it to one page. So I'm about to show you the one-page customized resume, but first I wanted to say what actually gets changed. So this was an administrative position, and she was somebody who had a lot more programmatic experience. So we shortened the professional summary, and we emphasized the client's work in nonprofit offices as opposed to her work outside the office doing the programmatic work. We still mentioned that she could manage and coordinate program and project skills because that was included in the job description, but what was not included in the job description was the in-the-field work. We removed the legal assistant position because it was least pertinent and saved us quite a bit of space, and then we added in that word relevant. And that indicates to an HR manager, director, whoever it may be doing the hiring, that this is not the complete list of jobs held. This is the relevant ones that we've customized for you. And then we removed professional affiliations and publications for space reasons, but also because an administrator is not usually somebody who publishes things. And we always want to give the perception that the client wants to stay in that position. Whether or not that's true is sort of besides the point. And an administrator who has publications to her name, the person may read that as saying, oh, this person's not going to stick around. They're going to want to go somewhere where they can be writing and researching again. So here is the customized resume for the administrative position. It includes everything I just talked about in the last slide. It fits that one page. It's clear, it's concise, it's got white space, the margins are good, easy to read, looks good. She got hired from it, so clearly we did something right. Now let's get into cover letters. Things to keep in mind in a cover letter. The resume tells your skills. The cover letter sells your skills, sells your story, shares why the client is the best fit for that company, right? And so the client's relationship to the company needs to be the center of it. These are the skills the client has. These are the skills the client can bring to the company. The client believes this, so does the company. It's all, what can I do for you? We share these ideals and values. I believe strongly in your mission. The more you can include you, the more you can include the company, the better. It also indicates to the person reading it that you've done research, that the client has paid attention and customized and written a specific cover letter for that specific job, which has a real effect. When cover letters read as generic, people do not consider them, and the application is often thrown out. The header of the cover letter should match exactly to the header of the resume. Copy and paste it. Easy. Include the date that you plan on submitting the application, the hiring manager's name, and the address of the organization. You do not need to go find these things. The client should have found the address of the organization, and the client should have found the name of a person or hiring manager for which to address the cover letter to. If they haven't, then it's Dear Hiring Manager. It is not Dear Sir, not Dear Sir or Madam, not Dear to whom it may concern. No, Dear Hiring Manager. But you should really, really, really encourage clients to find a name. Anytime you can put a name, it's much more likely that the cover letter will be read and the application considered. The introductory paragraph should clearly state the position to which you are applying. If possible, it should also include the name of someone at the organization, maybe somebody the client has met with for an informational interview, maybe somebody the client has spoken with. No name should be included as a connection without first checking with that person. And so you should make sure to ask the client, is there somebody at that organization that you know? Can we include them in the opening paragraph as a connection? If so, can you ask them, right? This is your second chance at a first impression, right? And it needs to show your enthusiasm, demonstrate the knowledge, share a compelling reason why you are well qualified for the position. Middle paragraphs should highlight specific examples and tell stories from previous positions that highlight how the client is the best person for the job they're applying for. What results have they achieved? What things have they done that will prove their success for the company they're applying to? Use language directly from the job description and company website. That is why every cover letter needs to be customized. You want to match their words. You want to match their values. You want to match their job descriptions because they're looking for someone who can do those things. And they've written it that way on purpose. Again, cover letters should not just repeat the resume. If there is a particularly good result that you've included in the resume and the client wants to include it again in the cover letter, then there needs to be more context. The story needs to be fleshed out. What else happened? What other things can we include? It can't just be the same thing. You're given limited space, and to repeat is a waste of space. Middle paragraphs can also be written as bullet points. There is an example I can show for those who are curious later on. The concluding paragraph should reiterate the client's interest in the position, maybe highlight some soft skills that the client feels would be valuable for that position. This is also the time to address salary requirements if the job description asks for it. If it's not asked for, there's no need, and you should not encourage the client to put it. And you finish with a professional closing line followed by the client's name. Some additional tips. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Do not simply restate the resume, right? You are constructing a narrative, telling a story that sells the skills that are talked about in the resume. More context, more opportunity to expand and flesh out what you've said in the resume. Simply repeating, it's not valuable. And you only have so much space. The client only has so much space in which to express themselves. 2 pages, one for the resume, one for the cover letter. So make it fit, make it work, make it specific to the job opening and specific to the company, its culture, its mission, its vision, and values. You should also keep in mind that this is a writing sample, particularly for people who will be writing in their job. This is looked at as a writing sample, and it needs to be compelling and interesting. As difficult as that can be for a cover letter, the more interesting it is, the more likely the reader is going to pick that person for an interview. Say, oh, I want to learn more about this person. The 4 basic steps to writing a cover letter. The client should have already have done these things. But to be the most effective editor possible, you should do these things too. Read about the company, read the job description in detail. Identify some keywords. What are the keywords the client identified? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Are there different ones? Maybe send an email back, hey, what do you think about these words? Or I agree with you here, but maybe we need to focus on this job description or this bit of the job description more. Header of cover letter and font of the cover letter need to match the resume exactly. Copy and paste the header. Easy. The cover letter is 1 page total, but because of the header, the company address, the signature, putting the company's name, you really only have about 2/3 of a page in which to work. Here's a simple sample cover letter for a volunteer manager position. Some things to highlight. It is 4 paragraphs long. It definitely fits on that page. It's brief. And that first paragraph says exactly the position that he's applying for and shares that he's read about the festival and that he knows about the festival and that the mission and values of that festival match his passion and knowledge for cinema. Then he gets right into his most impressive story, which is that he was the first editor-in-chief of a weekly magazine. A magazine that, it turns out, functioned mostly as a movie and TV review magazine and shows his experience and exposure to all sorts of films. And then finally, it discusses his experience at previous film festivals and who he is as a manager, some of the soft skills to finish up. And there's your cover letter. Thanks for listening, and thanks for signing up to be a volunteer resume and cover letter resource. Feel free to reach out to the Employment Program Manager with any questions, comments, or concerns. As a reminder, there is a document attached to the email that this PowerPoint came in that includes more samples and explanations. Feel free to use it when working with clients. An additional reminder that you are not doing this work for the client, you are doing it with the client. You're helping them, editing with them, proofreading for them, but you are not creating for them. You are not doing the customization. They need to provide that work. That accountability and responsibility will lead to better job outcomes and greater success once hired. So it is important that they are doing their fair share of the work. Lastly, this is a guide, not a rule book. It is not set in stone. Resume and cover letter writing is art far more than it's science. So feel free to talk it out with the client and find what works best for them. And if you have any questions, send an email, give a call, send a text. We are here as the ASAP Employment Program to support you and to get the best out of our clients. Thanks.